Hello, Taurus, and greetings from Kingston, New York on a warm, sunny, finally spring-like day. It's been a little chilly, and now it's very nice out, and I'm enjoying the sunshine and the natural lighting for this video. This is your Dharma reading, the Planet Wave Spring reading for 2020. Thank you for your patience. If you're one of the people who purchased this back in February, before all the shit hit the fan. And speaking of the excitement in the world, there is one analysis of this total global world chaotic situation that we could ascribe to a placement in your sign. And that would be Uranus in Taurus. Now, anybody who thought that through had to at least arrive at the question, gee, I wonder what's going to happen. That looks like a lot of energy. And part of why it's a lot of energy is because, generally speaking, Taurus is so resistant to change, and Uranus is all about change. And not only is Taurus resistant to change, it's in particular resistant to sudden change, and what Uranus gives us is a lot of sudden transformation, change, reaction. It's a little like I forget what university textbook I read this in, but they made an analogy. The author made an analogy and said, okay, so imagine a pile of gunpowder on the table, and you have a little pile of gunpowder, and you strike, you light it, and it's going to go, the whole room will get smoky, and it'll be kind of cool to watch it burn. But nothing really bad is going to happen for the most part. But now imagine you took that same amount of gunpowder and you put it into a pipe, you seal the ends, and put in a fuse. You light the fuse, and the same basic thing happens. Flame touches the gunpowder, only this time it's in a contained environment. Boom. That's what we're looking at with Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is more like the containment vessel or the pipe, and Uranus is the gunpowder. Clearly, it's the thing that's going to have the reaction. And so it would have been fairly easy to predict all kinds of big disruptive changes if that's the kind of astrology that you do. And then, unless you're advising people in stock market investments, what could you really say? So you are kind of an epicenter of the high energy focus of the time that we are in. This moment of great change, this moment of uncertainty, this moment of confrontation, and of precipitous events. I mean, for example, watching the stock market do these insane things back in late February and early March was what you could definitely call precipitous, and as are many of the market value indicators, right? So the market value in commodity is very much a function of Taurus. So we see the price of oil go like that, and then we see the unemployment rate, go like that, and it's a completely wild ride, and that is, as you know, the very last thing that anybody with strong Taurus in their chart really wants, is to be taken on a wild ride of any kind. It's just not pleasant. It's not fun. It's not interesting. And this may be particularly challenging for you because you are so acclimated to and depend upon a measure of predictability and stability, which we don't have now. And if we were in another era of history where things were not so radically unstable, it would still be a challenging time for you because there would be so much pressure coming from inside of you, Now, that said, there are going to be those among you who think this is just really all very exciting. I don't know who. I have not had any interview with a Taurus person, rising, moon, sun, who has said such a thing, but I am speculating. It's informed speculation that constituency is out there, and one of the qualities that Uranus in your sign is tapping into is a much deeper underlying layer of Taurus that loves loves chaos, particularly in an artistic way. There's some very talented Taurus artists, and this is one of the reasons why engaging yourself in your art at all times in life, but especially now, is important, because your art gives you a model of change, a model of progress, a model of development, a kind of a forum and a projection screen to be able to express this kind of uncertainty and basically radical transformation. And it's easier for you to do it, for example, through a creative process than it is to confront the possibility that you personally are going to be the thing confronted, challenged, and transformed, and turned into a pipe bomb. That's not, it's a little easier to have a model to work on. So, with that thought in mind, some of the most beautiful astrology of our time, and particularly as the year develops, is focused in the sign Aquarius. And Aquarius is a very important sign for you, as are all of the signs on the fixed cross. So let me just quickly explain that. Taurus is a fixed sign, and most everybody knows this, at least if you're an astrology fan of more than two weeks. Hopefully you read somebody say, so Taurus is a fixed sign. What does that mean? It probably made sense, but what does it really mean? So there's a fixed cross in the zodiac, and includes Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Leo. And the entities of the fixed cross, the bull, the lion, the human, Aquarius is a human sign, and the eagle of Scorpio are in and text from antiquity. That includes the universe card of the tarot. If you go to the 21st trump card of the tarot, you'll see the four symbols, the four pillars of the fixed cross illustrated, and these are essentially the pillars of participation and of maturity. Participation in society in a mature way, and that means your ability to be involved and lead a satisfying life. Now, at a certain point, you outgrow that. Where you're at, I'm not sure, but it would be at first good to check in with all of these concepts of the fixed cross, which include, in particular, where you stand with your relationships. That's the thing that one's own cross describes generally are oneself, in this case, you, Taurus, one's relationships, symbolized by Scorpio, and then parental relationships. I was actually reading about this in a homeopathic textbook today that brought the reference, and I forget which remedy it was, whether it was rust toxicodendron or it might have been rust tox, talking about movement and the need for movement. And so being born under a fixed sign suggests strongly that you have a need for mobility, and in particular mobility on the level of your ideas, and mobility physically, that you stretch your body out, and that you hydrate your body. That's all about movement. And Aquarius is one of these fixed signs, and it happens to see. There's your sign, and that's house 1, and then there's Aquarius, and that's house number 10. And house number 10 is it's probably the most important house of participation in society, the most important house of leadership. It's how you're perceived. It's your reputation. It is how you project yourself. It's about the collective responsibilities that you take on. It is about how you get the surrogate parents out of the way, and then create the leadership constructs in your own mind to be wholly responsible to yourself, as well as responsible to society, and engage that relationship in a meaningful, creative, and productive way, right? And you have this gene in you very strongly. And in fact, it is likely at times to manifest as something of an authoritarian principle, right? Really, it can go no matter where your politics are, how you perceive your politics, or whether you're apolitical. There are times when this authoritarian principle will really take hold in your life, and you need to be mindful of that, and you need to know what it is. You need to know what that element is, because it can be very destructive and self-destructive. And so if you want to be free of that, recognize its existence, and then notice its existence within yourself. Now, one of the reasons that Aquarius is so active right now is that Saturn is there. It's taken it 29 years to come all the way back around, and now it's here for the first time since it last left Aquarius around 1994. It entered, I think, in 91 or 91 or 92. It entered, and so that's a whole long cycle of experience. And Saturn, as you may know, is the classical ruling planet of Aquarius. I do not believe that the rulership of Aquarius has been supplanted by Uranus. I'm not. I'm too much of a traditionalist to believe in modern rulers as rulers. I always work with the traditional rulers first, and then bring the modern rulers into the conversation. So the modern ruler of Aquarius would be Uranus. But that said, if you want to understand Aquarius, understand Saturn. And if you want to understand Saturn, understand Aquarius. And that's strictly optional. But you really might want to understand Saturn and Aquarius to understand the calling that you're feeling now, and to understand some of the tension and the stress in your life that you may be feeling right now, and to understand the level of responsibility that you have right now. And this is a responsibility to yourself, and there is no doubt that it's going to emerge in the coming year or two as responsibility to a larger system, enterprise, or entity, or aspect of the culture in some way. There's just no way to avoid that. It's just a question of what the form of this thing is going to be. All right, so. For the past couple of years, quite a while actually, a couple of years involving Saturn, but then going back past 12 years, Pluto has been making its way across the sign before Aquarius, which is Capricorn, and this is your ninth house. And the ninth house, Pluto's still there; it's at the very end. Saturn just made the conjunction to Pluto, then it entered Aquarius. The ninth house is the house of spiritual matters. And here we get an interesting perspective on the inner life of Taurus when we notice that the spiritual life of Taurus is influenced by a somewhat authoritarian and top-down rulership kind of sign, which is Capricorn. And these years of your life are very different than any other in that you have had the opportunity and maybe have had experiences where you are deconstructing elements of your thought process, which is to say, not merely thought process, but your relationship to existence. The ninth house is about the relationship to existence. The whole chart, sure, the whole chart's about the relationship to existence. But when you think of ideas like where does humanity come from? Where do people go when they die? What is God? Who is God? What is my relationship to this entity? What is the church? What is the church done to God? What is the goddess in the relationship? And all that's ninth house stuff. All of this philosophical questioning that humans are capable of is a creature of the ninth house. And your ninth house has been on fire, and it still is on fire. And there has recently been a major earthquake in the ninth house back in January when Saturn made a conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn, and a process of your cosmology, basically, being shaken began. And this is not an easy thing to go through. The thing is, it fits very well with Uranus in your sign, and the signs and planets often work together to create a kind of a synergistic, positive synergistic relationship where they can express the same idea in different ways. And this is a thing to pay attention to when you're reading a chart, is to notice the ways in which the chart does seem to be saying the same thing over and over. And so one way to consider Uranus in your sign is also to consider the shakeup, right? This high-powered vibration of Uranus in your sign. Another way to think of that is to think of it as the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in your house of your philosophy and your cosmology and your long-term vision and your long-term plans for your life. So both are happening at the same time. The universe is speaking loudly, and this is an important shakeup. And at the same time, coincidentally, all of which can be ascribed to Saturn, Pluto conjunct in Capricorn, and Uranus and Taurus, and a number of other factors. The whole world is being shaken up right now, and you are having a kind of a homeopathic moment where your condition of being shaken up and the world's condition of being shaken up are almost in the same place. But you're experiencing it very directly, and it may be quite uncomfortable to have this sensation of things being shaken up. But it's a possibility that you're at a point in your life where you wanted you wanted some calm and peace and quiet, to look out at your garden. You may have had plans that you were thinking of. Well, everything is vibrating at the moment. Now, all of that vibration, all of that shocking change is also attended by Saturn entering your 10th house. The taking on of more responsibility, the voluntary accepting of more challenge and more responsibility. And this is very important that you get with this program and make your choices about the responsibilities that you want before the ones that you don't want are heaped onto you, or before some other thing capitalizes on that energy and intervenes, and you lose autonomy. Because with Saturn in your 10th house, you pretty much get the choice of take the Saturn principle over yourself, or let something else come in and impose the Saturn principle for you. And I assure you, the last place you want the Saturn principle imposed for you is from the 10th house, because it's all kinds of big forces and mean, nasty forces. But the correspondingly, the place that you most want the Saturn principle available to take over yourself is the 10th house, because it offers you so much in the way of the ability to shape your world. Right? Beautiful thing, right? And that's very much a creature of Saturn in the 10th house. There's other factors that can illustrate that same idea, but Saturn in the 10th is there's a bit of the Midas touch to it, and so it's one of the best things that you can have happen astrologically. After a couple of the more challenging ones, it's nice to have one where you gain power, where you gain the potential to have influence in your life. But you have to take the steps to do it, and you have to choose the responsibility that you want. You have to choose the power that you want and have an idea of how you're going to express that power. Now, we know that there's a lot of problems and issues in the world right now, and one of the problems and issues in the world that is showing up for us now and that has led to the situation that we're in is a lack of leadership. And with Saturn entering Aquarius, there's an opening and an opportunity for you to embrace leadership in a humanitarian way. It is also possible under this astrology to embrace leadership in a tyrannical way. This is not an insult, but you have to know the difference between the two basic forms of leadership, which is being an authority and being authoritarian. And there's a big difference, and you know it when it's happening. We tend to more respect people who are authorities than authoritarian, but not everyone gets this distance. And if your parents in particular were authoritarian, you may be inclined to live out a more authoritarian concept of what Saturn in Aquarius is about. And I would not call that living out your Dharma. I would not call that acting as if to hold the world together. You have the opportunity now to act as if to hold the world together, and Lord knows there's many things that need holding together. But the important concept inside of Dharma, acting as if to hold the world together, is acting as if to be a whole being, acting as if to integrate your own inner reality. And the way this looks in our solar astrology method is that the second sign from Taurus is Gemini. And Gemini right now is a very exciting place, especially if one is a Taurus, because Venus is there. Where are you? Venus is there. It's about to be retrograde on the 13th of May. It's about to be retrograde conjunct Vesta. There's another point here called Asbolus, which is a centaur planet. It's a little bit like Chiron. I think it's the fourth ever discovered centaur. So it's out of now like close to 100. So it's way back at the beginning of the history. I think Asbolus, I think, is 1994, right? So the second centaur was discovered in 92, the third in 93, the fourth in 94. So that's way back at the beginning of the process. And the question of the whole Venus retrograde process with this old centaur there is, shall you survive or shall you thrive? Now, there's a number of dichotomies involved because Gemini is involved. Wherever there's Gemini, there's going to be dichotomies. And so one of the dichotomies to seek an understanding of is the dichotomy of your two parallel value systems. Second house represents the value system, and the question of the second house is, what do I value? And this question is going to be asked in a bold way as Venus turns to retrograde motion and stays there for 6 weeks. This process has begun already. The past few weeks of Venus and Gemini have been an exploration of one particular facet of your value system, of your concept of right and wrong, your concept of ethics, your concept of what you prioritize and why. When I say values, those are generally the things that I mean. And then there is the all-important question of the value that you place upon yourself. This is a big one, right? We talk a lot about self-esteem. I'm a bit challenged in grasping the language of holding one's self in esteem, but I'm less challenged with the language of the respect that one has for oneself and the value that one places on oneself. And so respect means to see, and to value means to evaluate. It means to be able to honestly assess yourself. And with Gemini on this house of evaluation and valuation and self-valuation, the question is, how many sides of the story can you see? Right? Because Gemini always wants us to see 2, 4, or 8 sides of the story, and then of course to do so without driving yourself half mad, you need to be gentle in your evaluation. I would propose to you that in the spirit of Vesta, which is perhaps the planet, maybe besides Chiron, that comes the closest to fully embodying the concept of Dharma. Your central organizing principle, another Vesta concept, is going to be to conduct an evaluation of yourself, what the program calls a fearless and searching moral inventory of your ideas about right and wrong and your evaluation of the way that you've lived. I'm not at all suggesting to be harsh on yourself. You want to be doing this in a gentle way, and you will be guided to do so through this prolonged experience of Venus in your ruling planet in the sign that is associated with evaluation. So you're being taken through this process. You're being guided, brought in, invited, shown. You're stumbling in there, and the thing to just keep reminding yourself is, what is the other side of this story? What is another possible interpretation to these events, to these facts, to this potential or opportunity? What is the other side of this? What is the other side of this person? That is not to say to make excuses for them or to rationalize in any way, but to make sure that you're working with the whole picture when you make your evaluation, when you decide how you actually feel about something and what the worth of something is to make sure that you have a moving viewpoint, a polyvalent viewpoint, and that you are exploring your ideas. Taurus can struggle with fixed concepts, but you have Gemini associated. Again, here's how it looks. It's very close to you, right? This is Taurus, and then this is Gemini. Very, close to Taurus. It's a direct extension of it. It's the next thing. And then we're going to talk about Aries in a second, where there's another a crucial event that happens. Let me just get the draw these in here, and then in these. Really need to write this down somewhere. But one of my theories of the sun signs is that the sign before and after are influential in explaining the sign between them. So if you want to understand Taurus, one way is to definitely explore the whole fixed cross. No doubt about it. Then explore the adjoining signs. So to understand Taurus, look at Aries and look at Gemini. A big project involving this Venus retrograde is going to be your position about money, your values about money, and the way that you use money as a principle in your life, and the extent to which it is a central principle or an auxiliary principle. So there's a big money question, and it's not about a question of how much you have. It's a question of how you think about finances in general and the value of money in total, as a total entity. What is the value of money? And this is not a question that you can dismiss by saying, oh, I hate money, or money's the root of all evil, or everybody with money is crazy. But to really go deep and to understand this, and Venus, Vesta are going to take you there. All right. A couple of more major points. The retrograde of Mars is going to be every bit as important as the retrograde of Venus in your life. The retrograde of Mars takes place in the autumn. The retrograde of Venus takes place in the late spring into the first week of summer. If you're in the southern hemisphere. The retrograde of Mars technically goes from September 9 through it looks like January, through 11 November 13th, meaning it encompasses the American presidential election. One of the reasons why this Mars retrograde in Aries is so relevant to you is because one of the most distinctive things about Taurus is that it has the sign Aries located in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of all things hidden. Aries is the sign that says I am. And so your I am of Aries is in your house of things hidden, the 12th. This creates some tension. This like motivates a search. There's a persistent need to find out, a kind of a burning, subtly gnawing curiosity at all times about who you are, and it might help to understand that part of that is that your most powerful house of self-assertion, sign of self-assertion, is contained in the house of things gone missing. And so when Mars gets in there, there's going to be added presence. Now, Mars is currently in Aquarius, making its way across, and it's going to find its way into Aries by, it's going to be sometime in July that this happens. And then it's going to stay there through January. And so there's going to be this force deep in your soul stirring things up, and dragging your attention inward, which is the place attention needs to be dragged here in the digital age. Listen to the introduction. I give a long discussion about the impact of how the internet has pulled us outside of ourselves, along with all electrical technology, but especially the internet has pulled us outside of ourselves. And Mars going retrograde in Aquarius, in Aries in your 12th house, is going to compel you to go on a deep inner quest. Now, Venus retrograde in Gemini is similar, but is a gentler action and more subject to thinking about it, right? Consciously evaluating it, whereas Mars retrograde in Aries is more like about being forced to confront your instincts, and being taken into a profound unknown of a certain kind, potentially very uncomfortable unknown of a certain kind. This is not the year to make big decisions about relationships. If you're in any situation that affords you any safety at all, like this is certainly not any dangerous situation should be perpetuated or valued. But assuming that's not the case, and that you're safe in your relationship, you're not in any way directly threatened, and maybe you love the person and you're supported. In any event, whatever may be going on, whatever restlessness you may be feeling, now is not the time to be making big decisions in relationships. The time to do that is going to be next January, when Venus and Mars retrograde are over, when Saturn has completed its sign change into Aquarius, when Jupiter has completed its sign change into Aquarius and has lined up with Saturn on the northern hemisphere winter solstice. You're going to learn a lot this year about yourself, and that's going to be through both of these interplanet retrogrades. And then you're going to learn a lot this year about partners and other people in your life, and you are going to want everything that you have learned and will learn in the future to factor into the decisions that you are going to make. I've also learned that it is a good idea to wait until Saturn is done changing signs. When there's a Saturn sign change buzzing around in the neighborhood and hanging around like there is now, Saturn is making its way soon retrograde back into Capricorn, then it'll go back into Aquarius, where it arrives around December 16th. Let all that play out. Let all that happen. And then let both Venus and Mars leave where they were retrograde and go into new territory, and then do your final evaluation of the events of the year. There are going to be times when you feel like you're in a burning building and you've got to fucking get out. And that might be a good time to go on vacation. It might be a good idea to take a job working in another town for a while. It might be a number of other possibilities, but to make a final choice, that is to say, some kind of an irreversible choice in a relationship, or much of anything for that matter, that you want to wait till Venus retrograde is completely done, Mars retrograde is completely done, and Saturn is solidly in your 10th house. Now, on a concluding note, all of this that you're experiencing, no matter how fucking bizarre and over the top and unpredictable and disorienting and compelling of deep personal reevaluations, no matter how weird it all is, I promise you, it is heading for something you're not aware of now, something that you will probably be very happy about. So this is why I'm suggesting use your time well, bide your time, but resist that impulse that Uranus in your birth sign is having, that's saying, rebel against everything now, change everything now, make everything new and different now. Okay, rearrange your furniture. Take up a new thing. Play the electric guitar. That would be a good thing to do with Uranus in your sign. Or welding. That would be a great thing to do with Uranus in your sign. Tinker with an experiment. That's an awesome thing to do. But to radically overturn your life now, you're not working with enough information, and you will be very happy when you see what is developing naturally, that you don't need to force or push or revolt or challenge anything for. And I know there are going to be times when this is a tall order. Therefore, find your way to express that Uranian unpredictable energy in a way that does not create an irrevocable change. Lots of love, and bye for now.